So with this in-principle agreement, we don't yet have a treaty, but we have enough to seek a treaty from the European Union. And what we're going to hopefully see is that the position at the frontier and in respect of most aspects of day-to-day life in Gibraltar and interaction with Spain in particular, with the European Union, will be almost as if it had been held standstill, almost as if there was an extension of transition in relation to Gibraltar, but only almost, because the things that we are seeking a treaty on are the things on which we will stand still. There are many things in respect of which our membership of the European Union will not be replaced by these new arrangements, which will deal principally with mobility and movement of goods. Ironically, those parts of the European acquis, as it's called, which we were not a part of whilst we were members of the European Union.
You say that this is an agreement in principle and not a treaty, so could it still collapse? Could we still be facing that cliff edge in 6 months' time?
We have to be very clear that we are now entering a second and final phase of the negotiation. This is now going to be the negotiation with the United Kingdom and Gibraltar on one side of the table and Spain and the European Union on the other side of the table. Of course, Gibraltar, Spain and the United Kingdom have already sat round the table and carved out what we say is our in-principle agreement, but the European Union has other issues, of course, which it brings to the table for the whole of the 27 member states, not just Spain. There are Schengen acquis issues which will have to be dealt with. So we are going into a difficult, further complex set of negotiations, which will provide challenges again for the core fundamental principles that we need to protect. Is it possible that therefore there could be a collapse of these arrangements when we try and elevate them to a treaty? The answer is yes, it is possible. Is it probable? The answer is that it is much less probable because we've already done the very hard work of knocking heads together between ourselves, Spain and the United Kingdom on the very difficult issues, and we hope that the European Commission, understanding that, as they do because they've had to deal with this issue since Spain joined in 86, will want to try and preserve the work that we've done insofar as possible, even though that will make for a very bespoke arrangement in relation to Gibraltar, which will be completely different to the type of arrangements that Schengen has with the other microstates, or indeed with its members.
Chief Minister, we've had a bit of a roller coaster. We've been following reports in the Spanish press. Yes, no, yes, no. What were the stumbling blocks? Can you say now?
So the roller coaster politics, unfortunately, started for me on the morning of the 9th of December 2011, when at 4 o'clock in the morning it looked like one result, at 5 like another, and we didn't have a full result until 9:30. So yeah, I fully understand that there are ups and downs, and that of course people are watching and are concerned. People want certainty, and the government must give people as much certainty as we can. But people want, of course, the key certainty that the government is strongly defending the things which deeply matter to us, the sovereignty, jurisdiction and control red lines that are so embedded in the politics of Gibraltar, and which we all share. So if you look at that, you can imagine that of the things that we're dealing with, whether it's goods, whether it's people, whether it's immigration, or whether it's customs, all of these things tangentially are sometimes going to nudge and touch against those key areas. Indeed, one of the main arguments for Brexit is that many people in the House of Commons believe that membership of the European Union was an infringement on the national sovereignty of the United Kingdom. So you have to understand that there are graduated concerns that we have that we need to ensure are protected in every way. And the position of Spain has been to say, well, look, we don't want to advance our sovereignty claim. We want to park it, but also we're not going to accept that anything should happen that should be a retrograde step in the context of how we deal with this issue, because we don't want to renounce our sovereignty claim. And look, every Gibraltarian would want to see the happy day when Spain renounces its sovereignty claim. We'd like to persuade them of that. But in this negotiation, we've had to each protect those equities. And that's what's been very difficult. You have to, not take very much imagination to imagine what those issues are going to be, but I don't want to pull away the cloak of confidence that we have in reaching this settlement today, this in principle agreement today, because we still have to take that confidence forward to the treaty work that we need to do.
Complicated that the entrance to Schengen will be on British territory days after Britain leaves the EU. There's an irony there.
Not days after, because one of the consequences of having taken this to the wire is that we have not been able to do the treaty work with the European Union. In the halcyon days of May, June, when we started this negotiation, we hoped we might be able to get over the trilateral aspect of this work before the summer, that the Commission might then take a mandate, which is the formal mechanism for them to be able to negotiate a treaty, that we would then have negotiated the treaty in the second part of this year, and both the UK-EU treaty and the UK-EU Gibraltar treaty would have been ready at the same time. That has not been possible. We now therefore need to see this happen in the second phase, which is the first part of this year. So Gibraltar will not become the entry point to Schengen on the 1st of January. We first have to go through the work of doing the treaty, and once we have done the treaty, we will have to do considerable work to facilitate the mechanisms that will be required for all of the information systems to be there, for the Frontex mission to be established, for all of the infrastructure work that we're going to need to do in order to be able to have the new arrangements kick into place. We've said that we're giving ourselves 6 months, that we would like to finish the treaty work as soon as possible. I'd like to think that the treaty work is not also going to go to the wire, but it is the wire that promotes agreement in many instances, as you've seen in the context also of the UK-EU, and anybody who's been in the negotiation knows that sometimes it's the deadline that pushes you over and gets you there. But if we do go to the wire on the negotiation of the treaty, then the infrastructure works will take a little longer. And so it's not possible yet to say on what day entry into Gibraltar through our airport or our port will be entry into Schengen. But I think everybody wants to see this melodrama resolved as soon as possible. I certainly do.
Well, from what we've heard, Frontex there for 4 years. What happens next?
So look, we have a position in that respect going into this negotiation. It wouldn't be too difficult to guess what the position of the government of Gibraltar is. Spain has a different position.
How protected is your position?
Our position is 100% protected in the in-principle agreement. We have to carry forward that in-principle protection into the treaty, which is in legal terms, as cast iron as you can get, but there's nothing that is cast iron, of course, because treaties are made by man and therefore can be undone by man. But we need to carry forward that protection into the treaty, and then once that treaty is published, people will see that it is a cast iron protection that we are very comfortable with. Although, look, it is not unfair to say that we may find different solutions between now and the treaty, which may be more enduring and which may give us all the comfort that we need. And I certainly fully understand what the Gibraltarians want out of this. I feel it myself. I would not do an arrangement that failed what we all know and feel is what we want at our airport, at our port and at our borders, and what we don't want at our airport and our port and at our borders. And I wouldn't be selling something which somehow transgressed that which we feel so emotionally, not just politically and legally.
How relaxed are you about the nationality of the officers that make up Frontex?
I'm very comfortable with that issue because it's been an issue that we've been dealing with in the negotiations. I feel the same view that most Gibraltarians feel in this respect, and I think it's something that is understood and that has to be dealt with in the context of proportionality. You cannot for one moment make a reasonable argument that says I want to enjoy free movement with Europe, but I don't want to see any Spaniard when I go into Europe. That is not a reasonable position to take. And the people of Gibraltar have never taken a position that is anti-Spanish. We've always taken a position which is to protect ourselves from Spain's claim. So we need to ensure that we look at the reality of what Frontex is. Frontex is established by European regulation. Already in the annex to the Schengen regulation that establishes Frontex, there are proportions of numbers of members from each member state, so there's proportionality already provided for, and we need to extrapolate that into the Frontex mission in some way. That's no secret. I've said that on a number of occasions in Parliament. That I think is the reasonable position to take.
Well, yesterday we heard of guarantees to borders and coast guards, but what exactly is going to happen to them?
Well, the union didn't get that commitment yesterday. The union had that commitment from me, and the Borders and Coast Guard agents had that commitment from me some months ago. We had agreed that it wasn't necessary for them to publish it some months ago. And a few days ago, when there was some concern, and I fully understand at a human level, as we got closer to the end of the year, the union felt that it was necessary for them to share that not just with their members in a bulletin, but also with family members of their members, etc., more widely. And I said that the government had absolutely no compunction in them sharing that more widely. Look at the names of Frontex. Frontex is an abbreviation. The name of Frontex is the European Borders and Coast Guard Agents. We have the Gibraltar Borders and Coast Guard agents. I think those agencies are going to get on very well together. They have the same concerns. The level of professionalism of the Gibraltar BCA is one of which I'm very proud, and I know that it will be very impressive to anybody who works alongside them. Nobody knows Gibraltar Airport like the Gibraltar Borders and Coast Guard agents. The airport today is not as used as it will be potentially. I know that another chief minister said this in the past, and unfortunately with the best will in the world it never happened. Hopefully this time we will see that additional use of this airport, which was built for the purpose of receiving flights from Schengen. We will see more frequency of flights. We will see more people requiring the assistance of Borders and Coast Guard agents, both in terms of immigration and security. And I think that the work that they do will be very impressive to the European partners that they will have alongside them doing the Schengen checks whilst they do the Gibraltar checks.
We've heard of the removal of the physical frontier. There are people for whom this is a genuine concern. We've all watched Narcos. They're worried that there won't be any controls into Gibraltar.
So the way that I see what is going to happen is suppression of controls. And when you sometimes see our frontier operating as it does with very light controls, that's what we want to see. We want to see that mobility. We also, of course, understand that that greater mobility means the potential for those who we might not see coming into Gibraltar actually being able to access Gibraltar. But Gibraltar is an embudo. It's very easy to police. It's very easy to police. A funnel. It's very easy to police with people and also with technology. What we are getting rid of, if we do the deal on Schengen in the treaty, is the immigration check as a regular immigration check. We're not getting rid of security. So when you go into other Schengen states, from some Schengen states, you still meet security. You sometimes still meet customs, even if you're going from one part of the customs union to another, because it's one thing not to have customs controls for goods, but you still have customs controls for illegal goods. So let me give you an example. When I arrive at Brussels airport from Malaga, because there's a direct link from Malaga to Brussels, Brussels is the home of the European Union. Schengen is based in Poland, but Brussels is the home of the European Union. You walk through the customs area, and there are customs officers there, although you're going from one part of the common customs union to another. The number of cigarettes that you carry is not an issue. The number of bottles of liquor that you carry, as long as they're for your own personal consumption, are not an issue. But if you're carrying an illegal drug, that is an issue. And so you can still have security and those instances of law enforcement that you need to have to secure your territory, although what you're doing is suppressing immigration controls. So using technology and using the way that we know that we can and must, the ability to police Gibraltar as effectively as we do. Remember that funnel, as you rightly reminded me, will mean coming into Gibraltar through the tunnel, today over the airport, one day through the tunnel, and with the ability to use facial recognition cameras, AMPNR, which means the recognition of the...
Who pays for all this? Well,
much of that is already erected for Gibraltar, because we already have those systems in place. We'll be uprating those systems, and it's a system that we have been running for some time, so that when you have a very light control on immigration, it doesn't mean that it's that light. It's that it's physically light, but we're still using the facial recognition technology, we're still using the other technology on number plate recognition, etc., to be able to provide that additional layer of control and security.
I mentioned in the press conference that an issue that's kept journalists baffled this week is the difference between the Gibraltarian and the UK citizen, and whether Gibraltar is in Schengen. And so if you travel from the UK to France, does that mean that you might need a visa, but from Gibraltar to Spain you don't? So just perhaps some sort of clarification of what happens there.
So let's just think of
What are we?
let's just think of what was said, on which I fundamentally disagree with the Spanish Foreign Minister about Gibraltarians not having the rights afforded to British citizens under the UK-EU treaty. Well, it might be true that Gibraltarian citizens don't have those rights, but for a very simple reason. There's no such thing as a Gibraltarian citizen. We are all British citizens, and there's no graduation of British citizens under the main UK-EU agreement. So we would have those rights, except of course we're going to have rights under this agreement, which are going to be different, as Gibraltar residents. So our British passports give us our international legal personality as citizens, but our Gibraltar residence is what's going to give us rights in Schengen. And as we arrive into Gibraltar, it will be our Gibraltar ID card that will distinguish us from other British citizens who arrive and who are not residents in Gibraltar, who will not require a visa. All they will require will be their passports, as they do today. There will be no change there. No British citizen will be required to show a document they haven't been required to show in the past, and they'll then be able to access Gibraltar. And we will be able, with our Gibraltar ID cards, to enter Gibraltar, of course, in the way that we always have today. But once we're in Gibraltar, we will have the ability to roam throughout the rest of the European Union. Now, of course, that has great advantages if you want to go on a tour of Europe. The reality is it's a massive advantage in the context of being able to move between Gibraltar and Spain, which is where most Gibraltar residents will be moving up and down. And it will take away the whip hand of Spain, which has been used in the past when politicians have wanted to abuse it, to exert economic pressure on Gibraltar and socio-economic pressure on Gibraltar by creating huge queues in Gibraltar, by controlling the entry into Spain more or less at the end of the working day or even at the weekend. That goes away.
So details on Gibraltarians perhaps working in Spain, living in Spain, that is something that still has to be ironed out?
Well, Gibraltarians who live in Gibraltar, are residents of Gibraltar, have the Gibraltar ID cards. Most Gibraltarians don't have anything other than a second home in Spain. They don't have their principal residence in Spain. Some do have their principal residence in Spain, and then as British citizens they have the full rights under the new arrangements, and if they were there before the withdrawal agreement kicked in at the end of January this year, they have the withdrawal agreement rights as well.
Well, Schengen doesn't cover the customs union, so what's going to happen there?
So you have the regime for persons, which is the Schengen regime. Remember that you also have the free movement of people, which is the general membership of the European Union. Every citizen of the Union has that, even if they are not citizens of a Schengen member state, right? But then you also have this other mechanism, which is called Schengen, about movement of people. And then you have the Common Customs Union, which is the free movement of goods. And the United Kingdom was not in Schengen, but was in the Common Customs Union. We were neither in Schengen nor in the Common Customs Union. The Common Customs Union is designed to ensure that there is free movement of goods within the EU, and that is done on a level playing field basis. So if you have a factory for cars in one member state or in another, the workers in that factory have to have the same, or more or less the same, labor rights, and you have to have the same environmental controls on the production of the vehicle, etc. That's what the Common Customs Union is designed for. It is an enormous acquis, as it's called, and it will be very difficult for Gibraltar to become a member of the Common Customs Union. Although when we started the negotiation, this is what the discussion was about. Would we want to become members of the Common Customs Union? Look, there are rules there about the production of vehicles, how you turn metal, etc., etc. So it makes sense that we should not become members of the Customs Union, that in fact what we should look at, and in consultation with business here as we start this negotiation and options are put to us, that we should have a relationship with the Customs Union, whether that is a customs union with the customs union, or it is a different and more bespoke relationship, because look, the nature of the Gibraltar market is in most areas what is known as de minimis. It's smaller than the quantities that are likely to produce distortion in the market, and therefore there are opportunities to do a very bespoke arrangement, and we'll be pursuing that as well, because that would be administratively lighter and would potentially be more attractive to Gibraltar businesses.
So goods coming from the UK, we know that without a deal, we had to have that ferry from Algeciras. What changes? For example, the UK going into France will still have to pass border control posts, I would imagine, for goods coming into Gibraltar. So what actually changes in terms of goods coming to us? Should we be rushing out and buying toilet paper?
No. There's no need to do any panic buying, or at least no more panic buying than Gibraltar has already done in the context of buying for Christmas and New Year as usual. Look, the fact that there is a deal means that there is now the opportunity between the UK and the EU for an easier movement of goods from the UK to the EU. That was the first thing. If there was no UK-EU deal, then those goods which were coming to us from the United Kingdom would likely get snarled up between Dover and Calais, not because of the absence of a deal between Gibraltar and the UK and the EU and Spain, but because of the absence of a UK-EU deal. Now there is that deal, the goods will flow more easily towards us. What we are expecting is that insofar as it is administratively possible for Spain and Gibraltar, we will be ensuring that the same systems apply between us on the 1st of January as applied between us on the 31st of December for now, until we are able to enhance those arrangements by an arrangement in respect of goods where we hope to be able to have a suppression of controls and a freer movement of goods, although there will be a lot, of course, still of customs work, because in that context, a little like the BCA, in that context you have more work for your customs officials because they need to be policing goods on the market, not just at the entry and exit point. You have to have trusted trader schemes, you have to have very sophisticated mechanisms to ensure that we're keeping to the obligations that we might acquire after consultation with business and once we have started this negotiation.
Well, for you today is a great day, but how much opposition do you think you'll get to this deal?
Look, today is not a great day for me. Today is a great day for Gibraltar, because tomorrow would have been a very difficult day for Gibraltar if we had not reached these arrangements today. There are people in politics whose choice is to criticize me as an individual or as a person, to criticize my party because they dislike our policies, or to criticize me or my party simply because they might have been supportive of us before, they did not get an advantage that they sought from us, and they now decide that they're ideologically opposed to us. I would ask them all to simply, for one day, put that aside. There is a lot of politics on which to defeat Fabian Picardo and the GSLP Liberals at the next election if the people decide that we are wrong on principles and others are right on principles and ideologies. This is about the playing field itself. This is not, in my view, the issue on which we need to have the row. We are more likely to have the row in other areas in a way that potentially is more effective for my political opponents to raise and to try and garner constituent support on than this key issue, because this key issue is about the continued existence of the field on which we practice politics, right? The Gibraltar that we know today. The alternative is socio-economically sustainable, but not socio-economically attractive. And I think that is the reality. And so I hope we will be able to take this to a treaty, because if we don't take it to a treaty and we don't succeed, then today will mean nothing. And what would have happened on the 1st of January might happen on the 1st of July. And we would have those issues. Opposing for the sake of opposing is not meaningful opposition. The fundamentals here are protected. We voted to stay in the European Union. This is not staying in the European Union. We are leaving the European Union with the United Kingdom. But we have different future relationship arrangements, just like the UK has made arrangements that work for it. People ask me, have we been let down by the UK because we weren't in their deal? There is very little in their deal that we would want, because the UK has repositioned itself to do all of the things that I was talking about before in terms of the customs union. It's looking for the things that it needs with the EU in order to be able to trade well and to be able to trade well with the rest of the world. We don't have that trade in goods. We have a completely different trade. We have completely different needs in the context of a relationship for the future with the European Union, that differentiated solution. And so that's why that differentiated solution is the one that I think most people, when they look at it carefully, is one that they will support because it delivers what Gibraltar needs.
What about concerns that we are diluting our relationship with the UK?
None whatsoever. This cements our relationship with the UK. I mean, anybody who falls for the trap of saying that this is going to make us closer to Spain or to the European Union forgets that we will be on the UK side of this treaty. The treaty will be the UK and the European Union, and the UK side is Gibraltar. We will be even more closely wedded to the United Kingdom because the UK is entering into a treaty just for us. Before, we were a protocol, an annex to the United Kingdom's accession. The UK is actually taking the political time to negotiate a treaty for Gibraltar to ensure the prosperity of a continued British Gibraltar forever, which is what this is designed to achieve, and I'm very comfortable is the right route to pursue for that purpose.